I knew something was wrong before he even spoke. The house was too quiet for a house with a grown son inside. Not the good kind of quiet, no soft kettle whistle, no footsteps, no Quran from the radio in the kitchen, only the clock on the wall, tapping like a finger on my shoulder. He stood by the doorway, not coming into the living room, as if the rug might burn him. His shoulders looked heavy. My Yusuf. My boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and wet cheeks, who would put his small head in my lap after Maghrib and whisper his secrets like prayers. "Mama," he said, and his voice did not sound like my son's voice. It sounded tired, older than mine. "I have to tell you something." I felt the old habit rise in me. When a child speaks like that, a mother wants to fix it, to wash it, to cover it with a blanket and hot tea. I folded my hands to stop myself from moving, from touching him. "Tell me," I said, even though my breath was already shaking. He swallowed, looked at the ceiling, at the wall, anywhere but my face. I stopped praying. He said it fast, like a stone dropped into a well. Then he added what broke me in two. "And it's because of you." The room seemed to tilt. I was 63 years old in that moment, and also 30, and also 20 and afraid, and also 7 with bare feet and a cracked lip. So many versions of me, all at once, and none of them knew what to say. I heard my own voice whisper, "Astaghfirullah," not a curse, a rope. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to lay down 1,000 reasons, 1,000 rules, like bricks. But his eyes were round and glassy, and I understood an awful thing. He was not here to fight me. He was here to bury something between us, maybe a body, maybe a child we both used to know. I remembered his tiny hands patting the prayer mat flat. I remembered his first wobbly sujood. I remembered every time I used Allah's name like a belt. He turned to leave, and the clock kept tapping. In my head, I heard the adhan, not from a mosque, but from some deep place inside. Come to prayer, come to success. My mouth wanted to say, stay. My heart was already on its knees. If this story finds you today, follow Voices of Fatima, like the video, and share it with someone who needs gentleness. Your support helps these real stories reach more hearts. Have you ever been blamed by someone you love, and did it change the way you loved them? Tell me in the comments. My name is Fatima. I am 63 years old. My hands are soft on top and rough in the palm from years of washing dishes, kneading dough, holding hot pots with wet cloths, and turning the pages of a Quran that smells like old paper and jasmine oil. I live in a small apartment that is clean in the morning and messy by the evening, when keys, chargers, and shoes wander off to find trouble. The sun finds my living room first, and it sharpens the dust into tiny gold birds. The kettle in my kitchen has one loud whistle and one gentle one, like it can't decide how to speak to me. I am a mother of 2, Aisha and Yusuf. My husband, Khalid, died 10 years ago. He was quiet, careful with words, like a man who knows the weight of every sentence. He worked nights at the factory, and his clothes smelled like oil and metal and sometimes like the wind. He loved the adhan more than any song. When he died, the house was full of voices, then empty, then full again with silence. I carry him inside me still, like a second spine. We did not have money. We had beans and rice, and sometimes we had meat. We had the radio that padded out the news in English and Arabic. We had prayer. We had the old red rug with faded corners and a small burn where a coal from the brazier fell one winter morning. We had neighbors. We had Sister Huda, who made the best basbousa and the worst decisions with her mouth. We had Sister Nora, who cried while she cut vegetables and said she didn't know why. We had the masjid, 5 blocks away, where the carpet was new and smelled like a car. and the imam's voice was young and steady. My children learned the sound of faith before they learned the meaning of it. The Quran on the shelf. The tasbih I kept by the bed, dark brown, smooth from my fingers. The small white hats folded in a drawer. Aisha's hijab, pink at first, then plain. Yusuf's tiny thobe that made him look like a serious little moon. When they were small, I was soft. I told them, Allah is the most merciful. I told them paradise was a garden, and I hoped to meet them under a tree there in the shade. I told them the angels write everything, even the tears they hide under their pillows. Then life pressed. There is a difference between storybook faith and the faith you use to hold the roof up when rain comes. When Khalid lost his job for 3 months the year Yusuf turned 9, something hard grew in me. Fear is a bad teacher. I thought I was being strong. I thought strong meant strict. I began to speak of Allah's anger more than his mercy. I gave long speeches about hellfire to a boy who still carried a stuffed lion to bed. Yusuf was a gentle child. He painted on scraps of cardboard, little mosques with crooked domes and guards made of orange cats. He loved to help me peel potatoes, even when his hands were too small for the knife. When I called him for prayer, he came running in his socks. His forehead on the mat looked like a perfect coin. After we prayed, he would ask me, "Did Allah hear me?" And I would say, "Yes, Habibi, of course." I should have said, "And he loves to hear you." But I was already changing. Maybe it began with the gossip. The sisters at the masjid liked to talk. It felt like care sometimes, and sometimes like a blade. "Did you hear about Sister Salma's boy? He stopped going to Jumu'ah. Her fault. Too soft on him. Did you see Maryam without hijab? Astaghfirullah. Where is her mother?" I told myself these were warnings, like signs on the road to protect us. But I was not reading signs. I was writing rules in stone where Allah wrote in the heart. I held Yusuf tighter. I checked his phone sometimes. I asked him where he was going and when he'd be back and who would be there and what they would be doing. I told myself that this was love. Love watches, love guards. I did not notice how my love began to sit on his chest like a heavy cat, purring and heavy and hard to breathe. He turned 13, the age of breaking and building. His voice cracked. He prayed more slowly, sometimes with a sigh. He started closing his door. I knocked. I told him a Muslim boy keeps his door open to his mother. If I could go back, I would keep the door open to my own heart. He kept painting. He drew the masjid with the moon so close it kissed the minaret. He drew hands, old and young, folded together. He never drew faces, out of a little fear and a big respect. He told me he wanted to study design. I told him to study something that could feed him. He said, "I can feed myself." I heard the disrespect and not the courage. His friends changed. There was Faraz, a boy with a joke always ready like a ball in his palm. There was Kareem, quiet and careful like my husband had been. And there was a girl once, just a name that floated around him the way a scent follows someone. Layla. I saw it in the way he ironed his shirt for the first time without me asking. I saw it in the way his eyes drifted. I did not speak her name, but I felt my stomach knot. I started checking more, watching more. I wish I could tell you I spoke to him softly about his heart. I wish I could say I showed him how to put his feelings on a prayer mat and to trust that Allah would hold them better than any mother could. But I did not. I used words like haram, like I used to use no when he was 2 and wanted to touch the stove. I thought fear would protect him the way a thick door protects a house. I forgot the house needs windows too. When my husband died, Yusuf was 17. The day was hot. The call came from the hospital when we were both sitting on the floor sorting old photos. Khalid had gone to get extra hours. he never came home. Death is the last lesson, and I learned it too fast. Yusuf crumpled. He pressed his face into the carpet and breathed like he had been running for miles. I put my hand on his back and felt the way grief turns a boy into a man in an hour. I told him, "Be strong." He needed to hear, "It's okay to fall." I had been a wife for 4 decades. Now I had to be both mother and father, with a heart that shook like a leaf. After we buried Khalid, the house became a different house. Yusuf took night shifts to help with rent. I told him it was noble. He told me it was necessary. He still prayed, but I saw the tiredness sit in his bones. On the nights he came home after midnight, I would sit by the window and wait for the sound of his keys. The city hummed. A siren cried far away. The clock tapped. I would hold the tasbih and whisper the names of Allah like I was counting all the ways I needed help. One night, I found a note under the Quran on the coffee table. It was in Yusuf's handwriting. "Mama, please don't check my messages. Please trust me. I am not your enemy." The words stung. I prayed 2 rakahs and asked Allah to make me a better mother. Then I put the note back and told myself I would do better tomorrow. The next day, I checked again. I share this not to make you hate me. I share it because secrets lose power when we put them under the light. Because maybe there is another mother with a phone in her hand right now, breathing hard, telling herself this is love. Sometimes love is a hand on a cheek. Sometimes it is stepping back and letting Allah do the guarding. There were good days, of course. Days when the house smelled like cinnamon and fried onions and fresh bread. Days when Yusuf laughed like a boy again, his head thrown back, all teeth and sunshine. Eid mornings when he hugged me so tight that I forgot my age. Fridays when he came home early with a smile and said, "The khutbah was good today, Mama. It was about mercy." I would nod like I understood mercy the way he did. I did not. There were small cuts too. Times we argued over slippers left in the hallway. Times I scolded him for missing Fajr after a 12-hour shift. Times I said, "Allah is watching," when I meant, "I am afraid." The Quran says, Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. I burdened him beyond what he could bear, with my fear dressed up as faith. I kept old letters in a box under my bed. Letters from Khalid when we were young, when he was in another city for work, and he wrote me pages about the color of the sky. Letters from my sister back home, full of blessings and recipes and news of babies born and elders dying. After Yusuf told me he stopped praying, I took out those letters and pressed them to my face. The ink smelled like dust and time. I thought of the girl I used to be, and I wondered when she turned into a woman who could make her son feel so cornered that the only door he saw was away from Allah. I don't want to paint myself as a monster and him as a saint. We are both human, and humans are complicated. Yusuf could be sharp when he was hurting. He kept his pain behind his tongue until it cut. He stalled his studies. He held on to friends who pulled him late into the night. He did not always keep his promises, but when I look back, I see the thread that runs through it all. He was trying to breathe, and I was pressing. So when he stood in the doorway and said, "I stopped praying, and it's because of you," it was not a stone dropped in a still well. It was the top of a long pile of stones we had both been building, one on top of the other, for years. I made my stones smooth so they looked holy. His stones were jagged with anger. Together, they made a wall. That night, after he left the room, I took the prayer mat out and put it down. I stood there, my hands up, my eyes closed. "Ya Allah," I said, "I do not know how to fix this. I do not know how to love without fear. I thought I was doing right. Maybe I was wrong. Please forgive me. Please guide my son. Please." Show me how to open the door. I closed with my own hands. The tears came not loud, but steady, the kind that say the truth, quietly. If I had to start the story at one place, I would start there. With a small room, a clock that would not stop, the taste of salt on my lips, and the feeling that Allah was closer to me than my own vein. Even now, even in this failure, this is not a story about losing faith and keeping it. It is a story about how we use faith on the people we love. It is a story about Sabr, the patience that sits with you when nothing makes sense. It is a story about Qadr, the strange and perfect way Allah writes our pain into our healing. And it is a story about a mother and her son, and the space between them, and how to cross it. The morning after he told me, the house felt strange. I woke before Fajr and sat on the edge of my bed, waiting for the adhan on my phone. The screen lit the room like a small moon. I wanted to go to his door and knock softly. I wanted to say, "Come, my son. One prayer. Pray with me." But I did not move. When the adhan played, the sound filled the apartment like water fills a cup. I stood and washed, and I laid my prayer mat on the cool floor. I prayed alone. My voice was quiet. My knees hurt a little, and that pain made me feel steady. I closed my eyes and said, "Guide us to the straight path." And I meant both of us, not just me. After I finished, I sat on the mat and listened to the quiet. The sun had not yet opened the day. On the other side of the door, I heard him turn over in bed. A small sound, the sound of a person who does not want to wake and does not want to sleep. I whispered his name without calling it. Yusuf. The name tastes like patience when you say it slow. When he finally came out, it was later. He rubbed his face like he could wipe off the night. I made tea and put the cup in front of him. "You slept?" I asked. He nodded and looked down. I watched the steam rise and disappear. "We can talk," I said. "We do not have to fight." He nodded again, but his eyes looked far away, like he was watching a train leave a station he used to love. "I don't want to talk about prayer," he said. His voice was tired. "Not today." I felt a sharp thing rise between my ribs. I wanted to say, "How can you not want to talk about it?" I wanted to say, "Prayer is the rope that kept us alive." Instead, I closed my mouth. I feared that if I opened it, all the wrong words would rush out like a storm and break every window. I lasted until Dur. Then I knocked on his door. "It's time," I said. "I'm not," he answered. I stood there with my hand on the wood and felt small. "Yusuf," I said, "do you know what it means? To leave prayer?" He said nothing. I waited. The silence made a great, heavy shape between us. "It means you turn your back on Allah," I said finally. The words tasted like metal. The door opened a little, and I saw his eye, red from not sleeping. "Mama," he said, "I am not turning my back on Allah. I am trying to get away from the voice that tells me I am never enough." The door closed quietly. I stood there and pressed my forehead to it the way I used to press my forehead to the Kaaba when I went once many years ago. Back then, I asked for a son who would love Allah. Now I asked to be a mother who did no harm. That week was a long road. I tried to be gentle, then I tried to be firm, and neither worked. I put a prayer mat outside his door like a sign. He stepped over it without looking down. I cooked his favorite food. He ate a little, then put his plate in the sink and washed it carefully, like he was washing away our history. At night, I sat with my tasbih and counted mercy, 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 and still fear sat heavy in my chest. I made a mistake I had made before. I called the imam. He was a good man, young, with kind eyes and a beard that never seemed to decide how long it wanted to be. "Imam," I said, "my son, he is struggling. he stopped praying. I felt shame as I said it. I felt the words leave my mouth and run through the wires toward him. Secrets are like birds. Once they fly, you do not get them back. The Imam listened. He did not judge. He said, "Sister Fatima, this is more common than you think." He said, "Give him space. Talk about Allah's love, not his wrath." He said, "Bring him to the masjid if he wants to come. If he does not, bring him in your dua." I nodded and thanked him. Then I asked if he could come for tea and maybe speak with Yusuf, just gently, like a friend. The Imam agreed. I told myself this was wisdom. Inside, I knew I was laying a trap. When the Imam came, I made the good tea with cardamom and honey. I cleaned the living room until the table shone. Yusuf saw the Imam and froze. His face changed in a heartbeat. He looked at me like I had put a hand on his throat. "Mama," he said, so quietly it hurt. "You promised no talking today." I opened my mouth to explain. The Imam raised his hand and said, "I only came to visit." Yusuf nodded, sat on the edge of a chair, and stared at the floor. They spoke softly. The Imam told a story about how he missed Fajr once for a month, when he was a student, and how he came back. He said Allah is patient. He said we do not climb to Allah. Allah comes down to us when we are lost. Yusuf listened. His shoulders loosened a little. Then the Imam said, "Your mother is worried." Yusuf's face turned hard again. "My mother is always worried," he said, "and she uses Allah's name to cover it." The tea on my tongue went bitter. The Imam glanced at me. He did not scold. He made dua with us and left. After he went, I followed Yusuf to his room. "I did not mean to ambush you," I said. "Yes, you did," he said, "but the words did not have poison in them. They tasted tired. I thought maybe someone else could help." He looked at me then, really looked. "I am not broken furniture," he said. "You can't call a man to fix me." We lived like that for a while. He stopped praying openly. Maybe he still prayed sometimes alone. I do not know. He went to work and came home late. He listened to music. He laughed at something on his phone and shut it off when I entered. I started cleaning his room when he was out. I told myself I was only picking up laundry. My hands still found their way to his desk, to his sketchbook, to his phone. One afternoon, I found drawings under his mattress, not like the old mosque drawings. These were heavy, dark, full of lines that climbed over each other like vines in a storm. A boy on a prayer mat with a shadow behind him, not a demon, but a woman with gentle hands and sharp eyes. My heart stung. I put the drawings back, but they stayed with me. There was also a message I should not have read, a text on his laptop left open, to a girl named Layla. "My mother wants to save my soul," he wrote. "I just want to breathe." She sent a heart and wrote, "I'm sorry. Come by the cafe tomorrow. We can sit in the back." I felt heat rise in my face. I remembered how I had waited for Khalid once in a back room of a shop when I was young, and how my own mother had scolded me. I hid from my mother and ran toward love anyway. I forgot that when I picked up the phone, I found Layla's number. I called her. "This is Yusuf's mother," I said. Silence, then a soft voice. "Yes, Auntie?" The way she said it was sweet and made me feel old. "I want you to stay away from my son," I said. "He is not in a place to make good choices." She was silent again. Then she said, "With respect, Auntie, he is not a boy. He's a man who is hurting." The words made me angry, and under that, afraid. "If you care for him," I said, "you will not meet him alone," she whispered. "Okay," and hung up. I should have stopped. Instead, I found her address through a friend and knocked on her door. Her mother opened. She wore kindness like a coat. When I explained, She nodded and said, "We understand." She said, "We will speak to our daughter." She did not insult me, but her eyes said she thought I was a storm walking. 2 days later, Yusuf came home with an empty face. He held up his phone. "Did you go to her house?" he asked. My mouth opened and closed. I spoke to her mother." He nodded like he already knew. "You do not trust me," he said. "You do not see me. You see sins like flies in the air, and you swat and you never look up at the sky." He stopped talking to me for a week. We lived in the same small space and moved around each other like ghosts. I prayed. I cooked. I did not knock on his door. He did not come to my room. I left plates of food outside his door because I could not stop being a mother, even when he did not want me to be one. Sometimes the plates were empty when I came back. Sometimes the food was cold and untouched. Ramadan came. It used to be our favorite time. The house changed in Ramadan. The kitchen was warm with spices and bubbling pots. The radio played Quran all day. Neighbors came and went with dates and samosas. That year, Yusuf slept through Fajr some days and did not get up for suhoor at all. I tried to wake him gently on the first day. On the third day, I shook him hard. "Get up," I said. "Do you want to miss Allah's mercy?" He pulled the blanket over his head. "Please," he said, "stop." His voice cracked like a boy's again. I pulled the blanket away. My hand was fast and sharper than I meant. "You are not a child," I said. "Then stop treating me like one," he snapped, sitting up. His hair stuck up like grass after rain. We stared at each other, both breathing hard. "I'm not fasting today," he said. The room went quiet. My mouth was full of sand. "You will go to hell," I said. It came out before I could stop it. The words hung in the air, ugly and heavy. He laughed once, a sound without joy. "I am already there," he said. He stood and brushed past me. I reached out and grabbed his arm. He pulled away. My fingers, desperate and foolish, slapped his shoulder. Not hard, but my hand still burned after. He turned, eyes wet. "Thank you," he said, "for reminding me what your faith feels like." He left, the door shut, and the apartment shook with silence. I told myself I was right. Parents must guide. I told myself better a slap now than a life of regret later. But at night, I lay on my side and watched the thin line of light under my door, and I could not sleep. I counted the names of Allah. I did not get past Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim without tears. The most merciful, the most compassionate. Could I say those names after I used my hand like that? I made wudu just to feel water wash over me. After Ramadan, I tried again to fix things with goodness. I suggested we go visit Khalid's grave together. He looked away. "Why?" he said. "So you can tell Baba on me?" The joke tasted like blood. I told him his father would want him to be strong. He said, "Baba told me to be gentle." We both looked at each other like we were holding different books with the same title. Then I made my worst move. I had old letters from Khalid, and one voice message he had recorded in the last week before he died. When he felt his time was short, he had meant them for the children. In them, he spoke about life and work and faith with that soft firmness that was his way. After he died, I listened to the message alone, and I decided it was not the right time to let Yusuf hear it. Then years passed. I told myself I was protecting him. The truth was, I wanted to protect my plan for him. One day, when things were bad between us, I opened the message again. I wanted to find words in it I could use to make Yusuf return to prayer. I wanted holy words to lift my argument up. The first part was simple and beautiful. "My son," Khalid said, "pray because it makes you alive. Not because someone is watching. Pray because Allah loves to hear your voice." I closed the file and cried. These were not words I could use to push. I kept the message to myself again. I told myself I would show it to Yusuf when he was ready, meaning when he became the son I wanted. Around that time, I did something else unkind. His boss called me because I had left my number with the emergency contact. He said Yusuf was late too often. He asked if something was wrong. I saw a chance. Please, I said, speak to him about responsibility. He is losing his way. The boss spoke to him. Yusuf came home like a storm. Did you speak to my boss? He asked, jaw tight. I asked him to help you, I said. You embarrassed me at work, he said. You make me small in every place I try to be a man. He packed a small bag that night. I will stay at Kareem's, he said. I need space. I wanted to say, this is your home. Instead I said, as you like. When the door shut, the sound was a final thing. I sat on the couch with my hands in my lap and let the clock tap me like a scolding. He stayed away for 2 weeks. When he came back, it was because it was my birthday. Aisha had called him and pleaded. He came with a cake, store-bought, the frosting too sweet. He kissed my head without looking in my eyes. We ate. We even laughed once about the time he broke the blender when he was 12. It felt like a blanket over a cold place. At Maghrib, I prayed in the corner. I did not ask him to join. When I finished, I found him watching me with an expression I could not read. I miss praying with you, I said softly. He nodded. I miss loving prayer, he said. I do not miss fearing it. Sometimes he did small things that felt like revenge and also like crying for help. He turned off the Adhan alarm on my phone once, and when I found out, he turned it back on with a blush. He hid my tasbih for a day, then put it back in my drawer like a guilty child. He deleted the Quran recitation app from our TV and replaced it with music playlists. Then, when he saw my face, he put the recitation back. We were 2 people trying to pull a tablecloth off a table without moving the dishes, and the cups kept wobbling. The neighbors began to whisper. Or maybe I only imagined it. In the masjid, I heard aunties say, "Our youth are lost these days." I felt myself bristle like a cat. I wanted to shout, "Do not talk about my son," and also I wanted to tell them everything, so I would not be alone with this shame. I did tell one person. Sister Huda came over, and I poured it all out. He stopped praying. He says it is because of me. I am trying everything. Her mouth made a small O. Her eyes filled with stories. I made her swear not to tell. She nodded, and her nod was not strong enough to hold the promise. Soon, the imam gave a khutbah about prayer and parents. It was gentle. It did not use names. But he used a story that was clearly ours. A mother told me her son stopped praying, he said. She loves him so much she is drowning him, people murmured. I felt their eyes on my scarf. After Jumu'ah, someone told Yusuf. The imam spoke about a man like you. He came home with his face like a closed door. You made me into a lesson, he said. I wanted to say, I never used your name. He said, you used my life. One night, late, he knocked on my door. I thought, Alhamdulillah, he wants to talk. He stood there and looked everywhere but at me. I applied to art school, he said. I got in. My heart did a strange dance. Pride pushed up through the fear. Then fear sat on it like a rock. Habibi, I said, art is for the rich. It is for people who can play. We need steady. We need halal work. He smiled in a broken way. Mama, he said, halal means more than money. It means a life that is clean inside. He asked me to support him. I asked him to choose something useful. We both slept badly that night. The next day, I called Aisha. Talk sense to your brother, I said. She sighed. She loved Yusuf like a second mother. She came over for dinner and spoke gently to him about plans and money and helping me. He listened with polite ears. Then he turned to me and said, "I will always help you, but please let me be who I am." I shook my head. "Who you are is a Muslim man," I said. "Act like it." He flinched like I had thrown a cup. He went to the masjid less. He spent long nights drawing. He forgot to eat. Sometimes I left a small plate by his elbow. He would nod in thanks without looking up. The drawings grew bigger and messier and more honest. I saw one of a boy kneeling in the rain without a roof, the sky pouring down around him. The rain was made of words like haram and shame and hell. In the corner, very small, was the word mercy in pencil. It was almost washed away. I began to feel a strange shift. Every time I pushed, he moved further away. Every time I let go, he took one small step back. It felt like holding a bird. Squeeze, and you break it. Hold your palm open, and maybe it will stay a moment. Still, habits are hard to break. Fear is louder than wisdom in a mother's ear. One evening, after Isha, I went into his room without knocking. He was sitting on the floor, his back against the bed, eyes closed, no music, no phone, just quiet. For a foolish second, I thought he was praying. "Yusuf?" I said. He opened his eyes. They were wet. "I was just breathing," he said. I sat on the edge of his bed. "I miss my son," I said. He said, "I am here." "I miss the boy who used to race me to the prayer mat," I said. He looked at me for a long time. "Maybe you miss control," he said. Not me. The words hit me hard. I wanted to deny them. Instead, I got up and went to the living room. I lay the prayer mat down and tried to pray. My mind ran like a dog chasing its tail. In sujood, I told Allah the truth. "I am afraid," I said. "I am afraid to lose him. I am afraid to lose you in the way I hold on to him. Please teach me how to love without making a prison." The next morning, I cleaned my room and pulled the box of letters from under the bed. I wanted to read Khalid's words to strengthen me. I took out a letter where he told me about a small kindness a stranger did for him on a bus. I cried at the place where he wrote, "People are better than we think if we give them room." Then I opened the voice message again to hear his voice and feel steady. I listened to it twice. I told myself, "Soon, I will let Yusuf hear this." But I still did not. I put the box away. I made another choice that would soon break us both. The day it happened was not a special day. The sky was a simple gray. The kettle whistled. The house smelled like onions and cumin. I had laundry in the machine, and the washing made a steady hum like a lullaby. Yusuf had a day off. He stayed home, moving from room to room as if the apartment did not fit him anymore. I went to the balcony to shake the rug. When I came back in, I saw him in my room. The door was open. He was by the bed, kneeling. At first, my heart lifted. Then I saw the box under the bed pulled out. My breath caught. He held a letter in his hands. The voice message was open on my old phone beside him. I saw the little triangle paused, and the timestamp. Something in my stomach turned cold. He looked up at me, and for a second he was the little boy who had eaten sugar with a spoon and not wiped his mouth. Then his face changed. He was a man with pieces of himself in both hands. He lifted the phone and pressed play. My husband's voice filled the room, soft and clear, like a warm wind. "Yusuf," the voice said, "my son, if Allah gives you years, fill them with what makes your heart worship, not what makes people clap. Pray because it puts light in your chest. Work with your hands if your hands are happy. Draw if drawing makes you see the world better. Be kind to your mother, even when she is wrong and thinks she is right. One day she will be very old, and you will be her mercy. Do not be afraid of questions. Allah is not afraid of you. He loves you more than I do, and that is hard to imagine. If you stumble, get up. If you stop praying, remember that Allah does not stop holding out His hand. The message ended. The room was a small world. The clock tapped like a distant drum. My mouth was dry. Yusuf looked at me for a long time, and I knew the moment had come. Not the moment I wanted, where we hug and forgive. The other moment, the one that breaks a house. How long? He said. His voice was steady. How long have you had? I swallowed. Since Baba died, I said. He blinked. Once. Slowly. And you did not show me. I was waiting for the right time, I said. The words felt like ash in my throat. He stared at the carpet and then back at me. The right time would have been when I was drowning, he said. I wanted to protect you, I said. My voice rose. I heard the panic in it and hated it. From what? He asked. From my father's mercy? My hands shook. From making mistakes, I said. From choosing wrong. From a life with no prayer. He laughed once, a painful sound. You were not protecting me, he said. You were protecting your plan. He picked up another letter. It was one where Khalid had written to me when I was pregnant with Yusuf. If he is a son, the letter said, let him be gentle first, then strong. Let him be curious. Let him come to Allah like a thirsty man comes to water, not like a soldier. Yusuf folded the paper carefully and put it back. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said the thing that split me in two. Mama, I stopped praying the day I realized that when you say Allah is watching, you mean I am watching, and I am waiting for you to fail. I could not stand in front of that kind of God. Baba knew Allah was not like that. You hid His voice from me. I wanted to scream that I did not hide it from cruelty, but from fear. I wanted to say, I am sorry, and I wanted to say, I am your mother. And these two sentences do not fit in the same mouth. I walked to the bed and sat down slowly. My knees complained. I did not know how to be both safe and soft, I said. I thought if I loosened my hand, you would fall. He looked at me with eyes that were now so much like his father's. I fell anyway, he said, and you would not let me land. He stood and put the box back under the bed with careful hands. He was always careful with objects, even when he felt careless with people. He started to leave the room. At the door, he stopped. He did not turn around. I am done, he said. The words were flat. I am done pretending to pray to make you feel okay. I am done letting you use Allah like a wall to corner me. He breathed in and out, steady, like a swimmer. If Allah is as Baba says, He can find me, but I cannot find Him in your voice. He left. I sat there with the old phone in my lap and the room around me like a shell. I played the message again. Be kind to your mother, even when she is wrong and thinks she is right. The words cut and comforted. I whispered to the empty room, I am wrong. I am right. I am nothing. I am a mother. I cried without drama, old lady tears, slow, salt, stubborn. For days after that, the air in the house changed. Yusuf moved like a person who had finally put down a heavy bag. He looked less tired and more sad. There is a difference. Tired bends you. Sad makes you stand up straight and then you are just a taller target. He went out more. He met friends. Once, he came in smelling like smoke, and I opened my mouth to speak. He shook his head and said, Please. I closed it. I moved to the kitchen and washed a cup that was already clean. A week later, I went to the masjid to make dua in a quiet corner, not during a prayer time. The carpet was empty and smelled like new fabric. The sun made a bright square on the floor. I sat there and told Allah out loud, softly, like you talk to someone at a bedside. I did this, I said. I put my hand where your hand should have been. I covered your mercy with my fear. Please, undo what I have done. I do not know if the angels write words like please any bigger, but I hope they do. On my way out, I met Sister Nora. She is the one who cries for no reason. She hugged me and wiped her eyes and said, "How is Yusuf?" I wanted to say, "He is a mountain I cannot climb," but I just said, "He is finding his steps." She nodded and then, without warning, told me a story about how her son left Islam for 2 years and then came back. He came back when I stopped pulling, she said. When I loved him, like he was already back. I tried to hold her words like a candle. Yusuf found work at a small design studio. It was not much money, but he came home with ink on his fingers and a light in his face I had not seen since he was small. He put a flyer on the fridge, "Local Artists' Night," with his name small at the bottom. I took it down and moved it to the side where I would not see it. Then, that night, I put it back on the front. "You are my son," I told the magnet. "You are my son." 2 days before the art night, Aisha called me. "Mama," she said, "promise me you will not do anything to ruin his night." I laughed, offended, and then softened when I heard myself. "What would I do?" I asked. She did not answer. We both knew the list was long. "I just want," I said. "We all want that," she replied. "But we can't push him into Allah's arms. Allah does not need us to shove." I swallowed my pride and made a plan to go to his show and be quiet. The night of the show, I wore a clean black abaya with a small gold thread at the collar. I put on my simple earrings. I smelled of rosewater. Yusuf stood by his drawings, with his shoulders relaxed and his eyes bright. He introduced me to people as my mother, and it warmed me, even with the ache. The drawings were strong and honest. One showed a pair of hands holding a small bird and learning how not to squeeze. The title was Sabr. Another showed a man standing under rain that fell upward, back to the sky. The title was Qadr. I stood in front of one piece for a long time. It was a room like ours. A prayer mat lay in the center. A woman stood at the door, holding it open. The wind moved the curtain. There was no person on the mat. The title was Trust. My eyes burned, and I blinked them clear because I did not want to cry in a crowd. I turned to Yusuf. He was watching me. In his face, I saw tenderness and a line of anger that was thinner now, but still there, like a crack in a cup that you can drink from but not forget. After we came home, we sat on the couch. The clock tapped. The kettle hissed. We were our old selves for a moment. Then he said, "I'm moving out next month." The words were simple and heavy. "With Kareem," he added, "near the studio." I nodded. I had known this was coming, and still it felt like a page being torn from a book. "You will visit," I said. "If you want," he replied gently. I swallowed. "I want," I said. That night, I went to my room and opened the voice message again. I listened to Khalid say, "Do not be afraid of questions." I closed my eyes. "Ya Allah," I said, "this is my question. How do I love him without losing him? How do I lose him without losing you?" The answer was not a voice. It was a quiet under my fear. It was not what I wanted. It was what I needed. The next morning, I found him sitting on the balcony with tea. We watched the street together. A cat jumped from wall to wall. A man pushed a cart of bread. The air was cool. "Do you hate me?" I asked suddenly. The question came out of my mouth like a bird that escaped. He turned, surprised. "No," he said. He thought for a long second. "I am angry with you. I am tired with you. But I do not hate you." I nodded, a small mercy entering my chest. Then he said, "But I cannot pray in your house." The words were the flint and the spark on the dry wood of my heart. "Why?" I asked, though I knew. He looked at the sky. "Because here, prayer is a test I always fail. Baba said prayer is a gift. I want to find that gift again, if it exists. I cannot find it where every breath feels like an exam." He stood up. "I am going to the studio," he said. "I'll be late." He kissed my hand, and it burned with love and loss. After he left, I sat in his empty chair and felt the turning of the world. There are these moments, small and huge, where a story turns and nothing looks different, but everything is. He had told me what I refused to hear for years. He had told me why he stopped praying and why he blamed me. He had put the mirror in my hands, and in the reflection was a woman who built a wall with good intentions, and a son who walked away to find a door. That evening, I tried to prepare dinner like a normal day. Onions, garlic, rice. My hands knew the movements. My mind was somewhere else. I thought of all the times I had chosen fear over trust. I thought of the people I had let into our story, the imam, the boss, the girl's mother, and how my own son was the one person I never really let speak to me. When he came home, the house felt like it knew what had happened. He ate quietly. We did not fight. We did not fix. After we washed the dishes, he stood at the doorway, the same doorway where he had first told me I stopped praying. He rested his hand on the frame. He looked at me. His eyes were sad and clear. "Mama," he said, "I love you. Please don't try to save me anymore." He left his hand there for a second, like a promise he wanted to make and could not. Then he dropped it and went to his room. I went to my room and lay down on top of the covers like a tired traveler. The ceiling looked back at me. I felt an ache I cannot describe with any word except old. Old ache, old love, old fear, old hope. I put my hand on my heart and said out loud, "Ya Allah, I surrender. I surrender my son to you. I surrender my story to you. If he is to return to prayer, let him return not to me, but to you." That night, in my sleep, I dreamed of a door. On one side, I stood with a key that did not fit. On the other side, a boy sat with his knees pulled to his chest. A light came under the door, but not from my side. I woke up with tears on my face and the taste of surrender on my tongue. It tasted like salt and sweet together. The next day, he packed some books into a bag. On top, he put his prayer mat. He looked at it for a while like it was a person he had loved and hurt. He did not take it out of the bag. He zipped it. He caught me watching and smiled, shy, like a child caught with candy. "It's just a mat," he said. "I know," I replied. We both knew it was not. In that tender, breakable calm, the truth was clear. The turning had already happened. It did not announce itself with a shout. It moved like a shadow moving as the sun goes down. It was in the discovery of his father's voice that I had hidden. It was in his words at the balcony. It was in the way he held the prayer mat like a memory. The old way was over. A new way had begun. And I, who loved control, had nothing to hold but dua. The day he moved out, the sky was clear and empty, like a clean plate. We did not fight. We did not hug for a long time. We folded shirts together and rolled cables and laughed once about a sock with no partner that had been living under his bed like a small secret. He kept looking at the doorway, then at me, like his eyes were practicing leaving before his feet did. At the end, I went to my room and pulled out the box from under the bed. I put the old phone with his father's message on top. I carried the box to him with both hands, like it was a baby. "These are yours," I said. My voice shook. "I should have given them to you the day your father died. I am sorry." He looked at the box for a long time. Then he nodded and took it. "Thank you," he said, and his voice was gentle enough to break my heart again. He took his prayer mat too, the one with the small tear at the edge. He did not say anything about it. He put it in the bag and zipped the bag, and then unzipped it, and looked at the mat again, and then zipped it back up. He smiled, nervous and soft. "It's just a mat," he said. "I know," I replied. We both knew it was not just a mat. When he left, the apartment exhaled. The silence felt bigger than before, but it had a different shape. It did not accuse me. It held me like a big, empty room holds a person who finally sits down. I made tea and sat on the edge of the couch. The clock tapped. The kettle hissed. I waited for panic, and it did not come. The only word on my lips was Alhamdulillah, and I did not say it because I was happy. I said it because even in pain there is a kind of mercy. I made a little list in a cheap notebook. On one side I wrote, "What I can control." On the other side I wrote, "What I cannot." Under can, I wrote, "My tongue, my hands, my dua, my face, my door." Under cannot, I wrote, "His heart, his choices, his timing, his steps toward Allah." I looked at the list every morning for a week. It felt like medicine that does not taste sweet, but heals the stomach. I did not call him to ask if he prayed. I did not send reminders about Fajr or quotes about hellfire or just checking on you messages that were not really checking. They were little pushes, wearing nice clothes. I sent him photos of food and asked if he wanted some. I sent him a picture of the plant we had somehow kept alive for 5 years and wrote, "Still fighting." He sent a picture of a small plant in his new kitchen and wrote, "Me too." On Fridays, I still went to Jumu'ah. I sat in a different corner than before. I kept my head down. After the khutbah, when the aunties started their soft storms of talk, I slipped out. I did not go to the gossip corner. I went to the library. I picked up a thin book about the names of Allah. I read about Ar-Ra'uf, the most kind, the one whose kindness is gentle and close, not loud and rough. I read about Al-Halim, the forbearing, the one who delays punishment even when he could rush it, because he knows our hearts are slow learners. A week later, I went to the Imam's office. I told him I wanted to say sorry. He looked surprised and sad in a kind way. "You have nothing to apologize for," he said. "You are a mother." I shook my head. "I turned my love into a net," I said. "I trapped my son inside it. I told people things that were not mine to tell. I asked you to fix what should have been between me and Allah." He listened and nodded and made dua for me. He also promised he would not use our story in a khutbah again, even without names. I thanked him. On my way out, I put some money quietly in the masjid box. It felt like washing my hands. I called Sister Huda. "Please come for tea," I said. When she came, she looked hungry for news. I gave her none. I said, "I need to ask you to stop repeating anything about my son. I made a mistake when I told you. I will not do that again." She sighed and rolled her eyes and said she never said anything to anyone, and we both knew that was not true. I did not argue. I just said, "I forgive you. Please forgive me." She left with less power in her mouth. I called Layla's mother. My voice shook. "I want to apologize," I said. "I came to your door like a storm. I asked your daughter to stay away from my son without trusting either of them. I am sorry. She was quiet. Then she said, "We accepted your apology before you called." We both laughed a little because that is how mothers are sometimes. She told me Layla was fine. We did not speak Yusuf's name again. I hung up and felt lighter. I wrote a letter to Yusuf, not a long one. I wrote, "My son, I love you. I was wrong. I will not control you. My door is open. My tea is hot. My tongue will be careful. Please forgive me. Your mother." I put the letter in an envelope and slipped it under his door one afternoon when he was at work. I did not wait in the hallway to see if he came home and found it. I went home and made soup. In the evenings, when the adhan played on my phone, I still prayed. I spread the mat. I asked Allah for sabr. Not the kind of patience that grits its teeth and waits like a guard. The other kind. The patience that sits next to pain like a friend, sits next to a tired woman on a bus and shares the heavy bag. I asked Allah for tawakkul, real trust, not the fake kind I used to throw around like confetti. I said, "You wrote my son's story before I brought him into this world. You love him more than I do. You are closer to him than I am. I give him back to you." Some days, I walked to the small park near our building. I sat on a bench and watched people. Old men with their canes, young mothers with strollers, teenagers with their laughter too big for their bodies. Once I saw a boy pray in the grass. He put his forehead on a patch of sunlight. It was a simple, messy prayer. He did not have a rug. He did not look neat. But it was beautiful, because it was real. I whispered, "Ya Latif, the gentle. Be gentle with my son in small ways like this." The rumor storm came back to punish me. Karma, some people call it. I call it qadar with a lesson. Someone told someone that my son had left the faith. It went around with the speed of bad news. It reached a cousin of Kareem, who knew the owner of the studio where Yusuf worked. The owner called Yusuf into his office. He told him to keep a low profile because the studio had a certain image. Yusuf came to my door that night with his jaw tight and his eyes bright with wet anger. "Did you tell people I left Islam?" he asked. The words were knives wrapped in cloth. "I did not," I said. "I told one person months ago to ask for advice. It spread. I am sorry." He laughed once and then rubbed his face like a man twice his age. "It cost me hours," he said. "It cost me respect." He stood in my kitchen and didn't sit. "I am going to fix it," I said. He waved his hand. "No, Mama, don't make it worse." He left without tea. The next morning, I put on my black abaya and took a bus to his studio. I felt like a student going to the principal. The owner was younger than me, with a trimmed beard and a polite smile that looked worried. I asked if we could talk in private. I told him I had spoken too freely and that my words started something that landed on my son. I said, "My son is a good man. He is a hard worker. His faith is not your business, and it is not mine to parade. If you will punish someone, punish me, not him." The owner listened. He said he had acted too fast. He said he would return Yusuf's hours. He looked uncomfortable and small. I left with my dignity folded neatly under my arm, and also with a strange joy. I had finally put myself, not my son, in the line of fire. I texted Yusuf only one sentence, "Your hours are back." He did not reply right away. Later, a small message came, "Thank you." That night, I slept like someone had set down a rock she had carried for miles. Kareem had a car accident 2 weeks later. The call came at Maghrib. Yusuf's voice trembled like a string. "I'm at the hospital," he said. "He's in surgery. Can you come?" I did not ask if he prayed. I put on my scarf and shoes and went. The hospital smelled like lemon and fear. The bright lights made everyone look like they had not slept for a week. I found my son in a chair in the hallway. He looked like a boy who lost his place in a book. I sat next to him without touching him. We watched the double doors together. We listened to the beeping music of machines. After a while, he said, very softly, "Can you recite something?" I did not say, "Alhamdulillah." I did not say anything holy or clever. I nodded and began Al-Fatiha. My voice was dry and low. He closed his eyes and put his hands together like he was catching rain. When I finished, he whispered, "Ameen." His lips barely moved, but I saw them. "Do you want me to keep going?" I asked. He nodded. I recited Ayat al-Kursi. I recited the last 2 surahs. I recited the dua of Yunus in the belly of the whale. "There is no God but you, glory be to you. I have been of the wrongdoers." My voice shook on the last line. He opened his eyes, and tears sat there like pearls at the edge of a bowl. Kareem lived. Alhamdulillah. He had broken bones and a long road, but he lived. On the bus home, Yusuf sat by the window. The city lights made patterns on his face. He said, without looking at me, "I prayed 2 rak'ah in the bathroom stall before they took him in." He laughed a little, embarrassed. "It was not clean, I know." I shook my head. "Allah knows your heart," I said. "He knows you had nowhere else." He nodded like a child told something simple and true. We rode in silence. I wanted to put my hand on his shoulder. I did not. I let the silence do the holding. Days passed like careful steps on a thin bridge. He came by more. Not every day, not even every week, but more than before. He picked up food. He brought me small things, like a new glass for my spices or a set of pens he thought I might like to use for writing lists. Once, he came in the afternoon and put his head in my lap the way he had when he was small. We did not speak. I rubbed his hair. He sighed and fell asleep. I whispered, "Ya Allah, keep him," and I tasted gratitude like sugar. Ramadan came again. The moon was thin and shy and beautiful. He texted, "Can I come for iftar?" My hands shook as I typed back, "Always." He came with dates and milk and a small plant for my kitchen. We ate soup and samosas and smiled with our mouths and our eyes. I did not ask if he was fasting. I put a glass of water by his arm and a plate of dates in the middle. When Maghrib time came, I stood and prayed myself. He sat quietly, respectful. The next night, he came again. He ate less, and his face looked calm, in a different way. "I'm trying," he said. I touched his cheek with my finger the way mothers do without thinking. "I am proud of trying," I said. "Allah loves your trying, even more than I do." He looked away and hid a smile. One night in the last 10 nights, I woke for tahajjud. The house was dark. I heard a soft sound from the living room. I stayed in my doorway and watched a shadow move. It was him. He stood alone, his back to me, hands up, very still. He bowed, he prostrated. He stayed down a long time. I did not move. I did not cry. I let him have his conversation. He finished and sat quietly. I went back to my room and prayed my own prayer with a heart that felt like a window open to a good wind. I also tried to fix things with Layla, not with orders, but with respect. I called her and asked if she would have tea with me in a cafe, not in my house, not in hers, but in a place with chairs and strangers and safety that comes from being seen. She came, wearing a simple scarf and tired eyes. I apologized. I told her I had been afraid. I told her fear makes mothers hard. I told her that if she ever decided to be in my son's life in a serious way, I would do my best to be easy to love and safe to be with. She nodded and cried a little. We did not plan a wedding. We planned a clean peace. Weeks later, Yusuf told me he and Layla were taking it slow and careful. He said he wanted to do things right, not tight. I laughed and said that right often means gentle. There were still days that hurt. He missed Friday prayer sometimes. He slept all day on his day off. He played music too loud, once when I was visiting, and he forgot I was there, and then he blushed and turned it down. There was a day he said something sharp, and I made a face, and the room grew cold. Then he came back and said, "I'm sorry," and I said, "I am too." And we both smiled in the doorway like children who broke a cup and swept it up together. I changed the way I spoke about Allah. I still fear Him in the way a person fears losing the sun, but I do not throw that fear like a shadow over my son. When I say Allah is watching, I add, with mercy. I say Allah is near, and I leave it there. I learn to speak about Jannah more than I speak about fire. I learn to say, I trust your journey, even when my bones shake. I learn to keep secrets even from myself. When a thought wants to go to my tongue, I ask it, is this mercy? If it cannot answer yes, I swallow. I started going to a small halakha for older women on Tuesdays. We sat in a circle with our aching knees and our stories. We read about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and how he talked to young people, how he listened, how he guided without crushing, how he let people come to him as they were and then left them a little better without making them feel small. I wrote notes like a student. I practiced on myself first. One day, Yusuf invited me to his apartment for dinner. I cooked, he said proudly. The rice was sticky and the meat a little dry, and it was the most delicious meal I had tasted in years. On his wall, a drawing hung. It was an open hand with a small bird sitting on it. Under it, in tiny letters, he had written, "Trust." On his shelf, there was a rolled prayer mat. I did not look at it for long. I looked away and smiled. "Your place is warm," I said. He smiled back. "I try." Before I left, he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a drawing he had made years ago of a little mosque with a moon kissing the minaret. But he had added something new. At the door of the mosque, a woman stood with her arms open, not blocking, just welcoming. On the bottom he wrote, "For Mama, who learned to open the door." I held the paper to my chest. I did not speak for a minute because some gifts need quiet. A few months later, we went to visit Khalid's grave together. We took water and flowers and silence. We sat on the grass. The sky was blue in a simple way. Yusuf put his hand on the stone and whispered something I could not hear. Then he looked at me and said, "I hear Baba in my head when I am confused." His voice makes me gentle, I told him. "Your voice makes me gentle now, too." He laughed quietly. We recited Fatiha together. It felt like two strings tying again with a soft knot. People in the community noticed changes. Some came to me with kindness, some came with questions, some came with their own fear dressed up as advice. I learned to say, "Please make dua," and nothing more. I learned to guard my son's story the way I guard my own. A girl came to me after a halakha and cried, saying her mother made prayer feel like a police station. I hugged her and told her to breathe. I told her to make dua for her mother. I told her not to let anyone steal the sweetness from her prayer. I did not scold her mother. I prayed for them both. The biggest change was inside me. My fear did not die. It grew up. It stopped running around with a knife and a siren. It started sitting quietly and listening to my faith. I learned to say, maybe this pain is a guest. Maybe it will bring a gift if I give it tea and patience. I learned to ask Allah for outcomes and also for the ability to accept different outcomes. I learned that sabr sometimes means stepping back, so someone else can step toward Allah without bumping into me. One rainy evening, Yusuf came over with a small box. "I have something for you," he said. He put the box on the table and pushed it toward me. Inside was my old tasbih, the one he had hidden once. He had fixed the broken thread and polished the beads until they shone like wet dates. He said, "I am not who you wanted me to be, but I am trying to be who Allah wants me to be. Thank you for letting me try." I held the beads and thought of all the nights I had counted Allah's names with them. I kissed his forehead. "I am proud of your trying," I said again, because some sentences are the right ones to repeat. Not long after, he came to me at Asr time. He stood in the hallway like he did the first day when he broke my heart, but his face was different, softer, older. He said, "Mama, I want to tell you something." My breath held itself without my permission. "I pray sometimes," he said. "Not 5 yet, but some. And when I do, I hear Baba. And I hear your new voice." He smiled a little. "It is calmer." I nodded, and tears came, the happy kind and the humble kind mixed. "Alhamdulillah," I whispered. He looked relieved that I did not clap or preach. We stood there for a long moment, two people who had crossed a wide river and were now on the same side, wet and tired and grateful. Later, he brought Layla to meet me properly. They sat in my living room with tea and cookies, and we talked about small things and big things. We laughed. We spoke about the future in a soft way. They did not rush. They wanted to build with care. I told them the only thing I now know as a rule: start with mercy and keep it. We made no engagement that day. We made something quieter. We made trust. The last piece of the healing came like a gift wrapped in an ordinary day. I was washing dishes when my phone buzzed, a voice message from Yusuf. I pressed play. His voice filled my kitchen, steady and warm. "Mama," he said, "I just prayed dur at work. I used a small broom closet. It smelled like paint. I felt silly and also alive. I don't know why I wanted to tell you. Maybe because you are the first person I used to hide this from and the last person I want to hide it from now. Thank you for changing. I am still angry at the past sometimes, but I am not stuck there. I love you." I put the phone down and leaned on the counter and cried a good cry. If I tell you that everything became perfect, I would be lying. Life is not a clean page. It is full of ink stains and fingerprints and folded corners and notes in the margin. He still misses prayers some days. I still feel fear some nights. We still learn how to talk without stepping on old wounds. But we are moving, not frozen. And that is a kind of miracle. I look back at the day he said, "I stopped praying, and it's because of you," and I can hold that sentence now without shaking. He was right about a piece of it. I did press him until he could not breathe. I did hide his father's voice. I did use Allah's name like a belt. But he was wrong about something too, and I did not know it then. He did not stop praying because of me. Not truly. He stopped because Allah had to become a person for him, not a rule, not a fence. He had to walk into the garden himself, not be dragged, even by love. If you are a mother or a father listening, or a son or a daughter, know this: Allah's mercy is not a small thing. It is wide enough for your mistakes and mine. It is gentle enough to wait at the door without banging. It is strong enough to hold both of us when we finally come home. When I let go, I did not lose my son. I found a way to stand next to him again, both of us looking in the same direction. Now, when I sit alone in the afternoon, the sun cuts across my living room and lays a square of light on the old red rug. I put my tea in that square so it can be warm on the outside and the inside. The clock still taps. The kettle still hisses. The building still groans like an old friend. Sometimes the radio plays Quran, and sometimes it plays quiet, and both are okay. I think of my husband. I play his message on the old phone every few weeks, not because I need to remember I cannot forget, but because his voice reminds me who I want to be. Be kind to your mother, even when she is wrong and thinks she is right, I whisper back. I was wrong. I was right. I am still learning. I place the phone back in the box and touch the letters with a hand that now knows when to hold and when to leave. I think of Yusuf. He comes often enough that my heart does not ache with hunger, and rarely enough that my love does not grow lazy. He calls me from work to ask how much cumin to put in the rice. He sends me a photo of a painting he is working on and asks if the blue is too sad. I say, no. Blue can be hopeful. He laughs. Sometimes he asks me to make dua for something small and forgets to tell me if Allah answered it, and I laugh because I know Allah answered it in the asking. When I pray now, I see a path where before I only saw a wall. I say, guide us, and I mean guide me and my son and the ones I do not know. I taste the sweetness of sujood like I did when I was a girl, when faith was not armor but water. I thank Allah for the pain that polished me until a little mercy could shine. I thank Him for Qadr, that strange writing we only read properly when we look back. I thank Him for Sabr, that quiet chair He lets me sit on when my legs shake. People ask me for advice. I do not give much. I say, be gentle. Don't make Allah small. I say, use His names like a balm, not a whip. I say, pray in front of your children with love on your face, not fear in your voice. I say, apologize when you are wrong. I say, trust the writer of the story. I do not say, do what I did. I say, do what I learned. If you are listening to me right now, I pray for you. I pray for the mothers who hold too tight because they are afraid of the world. I pray for the sons who push away because they are afraid of their own hearts. I pray for the daughters who carry anger like a stone and think it makes them strong. I pray for the fathers who forget to be soft. May Allah make us gentle. May He make us brave enough to love without making prisons. May He return us to prayer the way rain returns to the sea, inevitable, quiet, and full of life. Maybe Allah wanted me to lose everything I thought I could control, so I could finally find peace in Him. Maybe He wanted my son to break my rules so he could discover Allah's mercy himself. Maybe He wanted me to hear my husband's voice after all these years so I could learn that a mother's power is not in her grip, but in her open hands. Now, when the adhan calls, I answer, not with a shout, with a step. I lay the mat down and I say, Bismillah, and I begin. Sometimes, when my door is open and the wind moves the curtain, I think I hear another mat unfurling far away in a small apartment with a plant on the windowsill and a drawing on the wall called trust. I do not need to see it. I do not need to count it. I only need to say, Alhamdulillah, and I do. If this story touched your heart, follow Voices of Fatima, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a gentle reminder today. Your support helps these real stories reach more souls. If you are a parent, what is one sentence you wish you could take back and one you want to say now? May Allah heal our homes, soften our hearts, and bring us back to Him with love. Ameen.